Hello, everyone. Curious Corduroy here, and you're listening to the Save Data podcast. Today, I am joined by Kimmy Gibbler, BTK,
Hello, thanks for having me back.
and Drunklock Holmes.
Hey, thanks.
And you are currently in a thunderstorm, right? So,
Yes, I'm living the thunderous life at the moment. Like right as we sat down, they were like, let the clouds roll in. And so it might be, hopefully everything goes good.
yeah,
Hopefully
if,
everything goes
if
good.
he disappears suddenly, it's because the storm got him.
Yep.
The storm literally got you.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm gone, dude. Tornado and everything.
So to avoid that happening, we'll just go ahead and get into it. And the first news we have was that Bethesda announced that both Starfield and Redfall have been delayed into the first half of 2023. You've clarified this for me before, Jeremy, and I need you to do it again.
Oh boy.
What's the difference between Starfield and Star Citizen? Which is which?
Star Citizen is the overwrought, overfunded, and insanely high hoped developed like spacefaring MMO to an extent. Whereas Starfield, I wish I could tell you what exactly Starfield's about, but it comes from the guys at Bethesda, so that means it's gonna have choice bugs and probably be Skyrim-esque.
So Star Citizen is the one that's never coming out then.
Yeah. Although Starfield might join it if we keep doing this.
Yeah. And then as for Redfall, that was announced 11 months ago, and we haven't heard anything else since. But it was that CG trailer. It was entirely CG. There was no gameplay. And it's being described as like a cross between Borderlands and a hero shooter where you fight vampires. So I don't know how excited you guys are about that. But I'm not a big fan of them just showing CGI trailers for things unless it's an established property that we're familiar with. It just feels kind of lazy, in my opinion. But both of these titles were supposed to be pretty big hitters for Microsoft this year. And with both of them getting delayed, they don't really have much of anything coming out. So I was just wondering what your guys' impressions were on both of these games, if you're familiar with them. And do you think this is something that's going to hurt Microsoft this year? We'll go ahead and start with Drunklock.
I'm very familiar with Starfield, but I'm not terribly familiar with I already forgot what it's called. Redfall.
Redfall.
Although the way you're describing it though sounds like it really harkens back to the '05 way of announcing games,
Yeah,
which was
pretty
showing
much.
a trailer that wasn't even remotely indicative of gameplay. When it comes to hurting Microsoft, I'll give my opinions on the other ones in a sec, but when it comes to hurting Microsoft themselves, I personally don't think it's too bad. But at the end of the day, yeah, that Starfield was the big one, and they pretty much announced that release date. What was it, last year? I want to say when they showed that first bit of trailer. It was supposed to be what 2022.
Well, they doubled down on it though too, didn't they?
Yeah, they were going pretty hard about it. But the thing is as much as they wanted to pull a Fallout 4, because I still think Fallout 4 had like the wildest release, which was basically they announced it at E3 and said, yeah, it's coming in November. And like it did, it straight up dropped. And I do like that don't talk about it until it's done type deal. But the fact that they were like the release date's here, and we're getting to a point where we're only I think we're about the entire year away. There was like a 1 year lead up. We'd gotten into I think April or May, and I'm still not seeing gameplay. Probably April because they just announced that here in May. I had a feeling, I knew the writing was on the wall with that one a little bit. I'm like, all right, well, Starfield's probably not going to see squat this year. It's probably not even going to come out this year. So that's unsurprising to me. But I think it's a good thing considering what we saw of Halo Infinite and what we saw of a lot of other ones, which is funny because everyone's hinging on Halo Infinite, but I don't know, that game, that's for a whole nother talk some other time. But basically, I think Microsoft at the end of the day will be all right because they clearly their eggs aren't really in the basket of their exclusives. That egg nest has yet to even begin to hatch, and unfortunately, it's going to take even longer. It's going to take until at least next year. They have smaller titles lined up, but yeah, for big hits, not so much. Redfall, I don't got much on, so
yeah, that's nobody really knows what to expect. What about you, Kimmy?
Yeah, in terms of, I guess both of those games, it didn't really come as a surprise. We haven't seen any gameplay for either one of them, and the fact that they were coming up on, later this year as a original release date, it didn't surprise me that they got delayed. And it's interesting because he had mentioned Halo, and that was a game that also got delayed for a year.
Yeah.
And the game has been out for a while now, and we're still not where we should be with that. So
No, not at all.
I don't know what's going on, man. I don't know what there is to look forward to on Xbox right now, to be honest with you.
Pretty much nothing.
For me, every third party
titles.
title. A lot of third party and indie titles for me.
Yeah, because as far as like the delay goes, Bethesda, we all know, puts out janky messes on release. Their games are just bug filled. So I'm wondering if maybe this is a situation where Microsoft is trying to learn from Halo, which I honestly think that game probably should have been delayed another year because it clearly wasn't ready when that came out. And I think they're looking at what Bethesda has done with Starfield in particular, and they're probably proud of it. Like, hey, let's go present this to Phil Spencer, Xbox man himself. And they probably looked at it and were like, no, we're delaying this shit. You guys need to polish it up more. As far as like the actual release dates go, that's unfortunately shareholders need to know when something's coming out. They want a date. So a lot of times you just have to give that right away, even if you don't know if you're going to hit it. But yeah, I mean, as for me, like I don't have much interest in what's on Game Pass right now. I know Kimmy's talked about it before. It's a lot of indie titles, right?
Yeah, and I'm not saying there's not a lot of good games on there, because there's a ton to choose from, but I don't know. At the end of the day, whenever I'm sitting here in a party with a friend trying to find something to play, we're never actually able to find something to play. We just end up playing different games but talking to each other.
Yeah.
So it's like there's all these games, but there's nothing to play. It's like Netflix.
Yeah, it all comes down to interest. Like we'll talk about PlayStation Plus later, but if you use your Xbox a lot and you like what they're doing, then Game Pass is a really good deal for you. If you don't care about what they're doing, then it's kind of a waste of money. But is there anything else you guys want to add to this whole Starfield Redfall thing?
For me, probably just the quick little addendum. I know we mentioned that with Halo Infinite. I've been literally sitting here quietly trimming all the fat off of that argument to make it as quick as possible. But simply put, I have to agree to an extent that they probably looked and said we want to avoid that. Mm-hmm. But I feel like Halo Infinite is going to be an isolated incident, because here's the thing. Here's the thing is a lot of Xbox's other main first party title offerings in the last, like, say 7 years have gone up without a hitch. Like Gears 5 was probably the closest thing to like an OG feeling Gears that we've gotten, because I felt 4 was stupid safe and I didn't enjoy 4 at all. 4 was literally like, hey guys, we can make a Gears game too. I'm like, cool, neat, do something interesting with it. But Gears 5 was a full-fledged package. There was a little bit of trouble with the in-game store and multiplayer balancing, as there always is. I mean, Gears players, if there's one thing they want the balanced multiplayer. But Gears went off without a hitch. Forza Horizon has had 2 really extremely well done, both across every platform they've supported, really well done games come out of them, with Forza Horizon's both 4 and 5.
Yeah, but
and
those
then
are
for some
racing
mysterious
games. Those are racing games, and we all know I'm those talking don't about, count.
We're talking. Don't start with me, because I was literally about to talk about how Gran Turismo 7 looked stunning.
Oh, okay? That's a mess.
So don't. Yeah. Aside from that, that's what I'm saying. Is aside from that, yeah, because they had another story. Simply put, though, in terms of like quality and getting what you wanted, if you were looking for Forza Horizon, you were looking for a quality game. If you bought that on PC, Xbox One, Xbox, it doesn't matter what you bought it on. You were getting the ideal gameplay and experience at a very polished experience across the board. Same goes with Gears. Gears 5 has probably like one of the best PC ports I've ever seen in my life, especially from Microsoft, which you'd think they'd know, being the owners of Windows, or the makers of Windows. So that's the thing, is like when people ask like, what is Microsoft doing with Halo? I'm like, I genuinely want to go ahead and hoist all the blame for this on 343. For some mysterious reason, they have no idea what to do with the biggest, easily sellable brand in history. And they flub it. They flub it in some fashion. And I still enjoy Infinite, and I still say this. So
I think they need to take Halo away from 343. Personally, they've had 3 tries at it now, with 4, 5, and now Infinite. And although I like the gameplay of Infinite, I thought that was fine. It's everything surrounding it that they haven't been able to nail down. They haven't been able to do like a really decent campaign, or really
I thought the campaign was really good. I thought the campaign was great.
Or handle the multiplayer well. I just think it's time for them to be like, you know what, we're going to get a different studio. We're going to see what another company can do. or another dev studio with Halo, because it's Halo, man. It should be like the reason to sit down and turn on your Xbox. But we're in different times. Halo is not what it used to be. Gears isn't. Most franchises aren't. Very few are able to really kind of transcend and reinvent themselves. But I don't know. Like as of right now, like delaying these two games obviously is the best move. But I know a lot of people were pissed because they were waiting on both of those games to come out. They want something to play on their Xbox and they don't really have anything. And I know with Halo, they've lost a pretty decent chunk of their player base, if I'm not mistaken.
On PC, they have. Yeah.
They
fell out of top 10. They don't give numbers on Xbox, but on
Yeah.
PC, Steam's numbers are down to like the thousands. Still higher than Battlefield 2042s. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I think at the highest amount, I believe Halo had like 250,000 players on PC, and I think they dropped to like 5,000.
I'd have to check the numbers specifically. I left the Halo subreddit a long time ago. That and the Battlefield subreddit, actually.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, no, they were taking hate to a new level, and I was like, I get you're frustrated, but these guys were like borderline threatening people. And I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah, that's never okay to do. But
no. But anyway,
yeah. The next topic we have is multiverses. So I know I'm probably out of all of us, I think I might have submersed myself the most in multiverses. But recently they did release the cinematic trailer as well as the pros versus devs trailer, and they did roll out the alpha. We'll get to the alpha stuff with Kimmy because I know he has a lot to say about that and how they pick and choose people for this kind of stuff. But did you guys get a chance to check out that cinematic trailer?
Go ahead. I didn't, so go ahead and take this one.
Yeah, I watched the trailer. I actually watched quite a bit of. I was watching Sage play it for a couple hours yesterday. So, yeah, I watched the trailer and I'm as familiar as I can be with the game without having playing it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the situation we're all in, unfortunately. But like you, I watched it last night. I watched a little bit of Maximilian Dude play it, and I'm pleasantly surprised by it. It seems to have a healthy budget put into it. Character animations are really good. Music is kind of up and down. It's not like fast-paced, urgent kind of music, but it seems to be made by people that really understand fighting games. Apparently the net code is really, really good as well. And the character animations and the interactions in particular just scream budget. And it kind of makes me think of Nickelodeon All-Stars. Was it Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl was the name of it?
Yeah, I was actually playing that yesterday morning.
It kind of brings me back to that because if you watch that game and then you watch Multiverses, it's so night and day. And I feel really bad for the Nickelodeon devs because it's pretty clear that they wanted to make a really cool platform fighter, but they just did not have the money and resources to do so because that game is so much rougher compared to Multiverses. But with the game being free to play, they did the alpha this week. And the way they went about setting up the alpha is so weird because you had to sign up on the website. First of all, you had to make an account for WB Games, and then you had to go to the multiverses section, and then you had to sign up and hope that you would get picked to participate in this alpha. So obviously, like top streamers and YouTubers were going to get in. I think all three of us signed up, right?
I did, but really late.
Yeah.
There was no chance in hell I was getting it.
Yeah. So none of us got in, but that brought up a question that I know you wanted to talk about, Kimmy, and that's how alphas and betas in particular are rolled out, the distribution method, how they go about picking and choosing. I know you got some issues with that, so I want to, pick your brain on that subject in particular.
Yeah, before that, I'm actually rewind and I'm actually pretty much disagree with you. What I saw characters that look like they were made out of paper mache, slipping and sliding and gliding all around the map. Mm-hmm. I didn't think that like when they would hit each other, it didn't look like it had any impact. But again, it wasn't in my hands. So
it's still missing that impact. I think sound effects need a lot of work too, but keep going.
But no, besides that, yeah, man, if you were to go to the Multiverses subreddit right now, the top threaded post is post here if you need a code or you were supposed to get a code or something along those lines. And literally a couple weeks ago, not even a month ago, the same exact thing happened with Overwatch 2. But with that, they did the whole Twitch drop thing.
Yeah.
So they chose the influencers to play the game, and then you have to watch the influencer for 4 hours, link your Blizzard account, then you might get a code just to play the game. Diablo 3, they didn't do like the Twitch thing for Diablo 3, but bruh, you could get invited to that one still, just like Multiverses. I was invited and I still didn't get a code.
Jesus.
And Valorant was also the same way, but that one was very like Twitch based, like influencer based. And you go to the subreddit, no codes anywhere. And that's all people are complaining about. I don't get it, man. These betas and alphas are meant to stress the servers and give people a chance to play. And this is the one category I feel like fighting games finally got right, because when those usually have a beta, they're an open beta like DNF and Guilty Gear. You just download it for free and you just play. But yeah, basically DNF Duel, Guilty Gear, even Street Fighter 5 when that launched, all had an open beta. I believe Marvel Infinite even had a beta. And yeah, those are all open. And yeah, it just seems like the more and more like Twitch becomes prevalent and becomes like a bigger thing, the more and more these betas and alphas are more towards getting it into the hands of influencers rather than, the public, the people that are actually going to play the game.
Yeah, it's more like how many eyes can we get on our product?
Wait, you mean to tell me Ninja, who's plays only Fortnite, won't play Multiverses when it comes out?
Is he still around?
Yeah, Ninja's still around. Even though, yeah, we're not gonna get into that, but yeah, he's still around. He's still doing pretty solid.
I forgot about him, but
everybody did.
Yeah,
except for 1.5 million people.
That's the weird thing about the internet, man, is you can have people that have like tons, like millions of views on YouTube or Twitch or whatnot, and you would not know who they were. They just have like their own section of the internet you're just never going to come across. That's just mind-boggling to me. But to continue on Ryan's point about stress testing, like obviously it's an alpha, but you want as many people playing your alpha as possible. This is a fighting game, especially, which is using rollback netcode, which looked pretty decent from what I could tell, but you should want as many people as possible playing your game to stress test it, to find bugs, exploits, things that don't work with move sets. And you brought up DNF Duel earlier, which I think did it the right way because although it was a beta, they just released the beta for everyone. Hey, if you want to play it, you can download it for free and try it out. Now, obviously that game's going to cost, I think, $50 when it comes out. Multiverses will be free, but still, you would assume that, hey, at least for the alpha, let's give everyone a shot. I do know, I think it's July, they're doing the beta for Multiverses. So I think that's going to be open to everyone, right? I don't know if you're going to require an invitation for that. I haven't looked at any part of that up at all.
Yeah, I have no idea, dude. I'm probably just gonna play it when it comes out. I'm not gonna bother at this point.
I was just gonna say I'll probably do what I usually do, which is I'll completely miss it, and then one day somebody will ask me to play. I haven't kept up with Multiverses. In fact, I was pleasantly surprised to not only find out that the Nickelodeon one came out, but also wasn't great.
Yeah, it needs some budget.
I think part of it just probably comes down to the classic things, like these guys are just not used to working in the territory, like they don't know what slaps. but no, when it comes to Multiverses and the whole way things work, it's really unfortunate that that's how betas and alphas end up going out, because it doesn't really feel like an alpha test, does it? It really just feels like this is our publicity stunt to get us into the minds of everybody. Yep. Yeah, this isn't really a stress test. This is, hey, streamers, can you guys like shill this super hard? And it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things where you think about it and it's like, what else can they do? I mean, there's a lot of times where some games it's like, man, if only they just had more publicity. They're great, but nobody plays them. And it really sucks that the primary way to do that is to say, sorry, fans, I'm going to have to give most of these keys to, top streamers, or you'll have to go to the streamer to get the keys. The Overwatch 2 one I wasn't super stressed about. I just figured I'd play that when it came out. But but for some games, it is kind of like a make or break moment for them when it comes to this. It really sucks because that really shouldn't be how it's hinged. But here we are,
and
dealing with that.
The thing too is, I feel like that short-term success, you're probably going to get a ton of people looking at your product, but in the long run, is that going to hurt? You know, I remember looking back at Apex Legends when that came out. It did the exact same thing where they got all the top streamers to play that game and to get as many eyes on it as possible. But once that money ran out and they stopped paying people to, you know, sponsor or be sponsors for it, the views went down. Not as many people kept up with the game. So I feel like a game like Multiverses, it's got the benefit of being a WB property. They've got money. You know, they're going to be able to show commercials for this on TV and ads on the internet and whatnot. So I think it'll be fine, but it just, I don't know. You should want as many people playing your property as possible, I think, you know. So on to the next topic. This is kind of my bread and butter. I hesitated to put it in here. I'm like, well, maybe I should just do this video on my own so I don't bore you guys. But it's Final Fantasy VII Remake news.
You can go back to that old idea. Actually, I'll talk to you later. No,
how's that
no, it's all
thunderstorm?
good.
How's that thunderstorm working out for
you?
you?
It's kicking in real bad all of a sudden, guys. I'm gonna have to go.
All right,
no, it's all good. It's all good. I need to hear more anyway because I'm
yeah.
stuck on the PS4. So.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Those PS5, my life is yeah.
When those PS5s come out, integrate is great. But
I'll probably just get the PC version if I'm honest.
Yeah. Well, I know the PC version. I don't know if they fixed any of the issues it had, but it did have some frame pacing issues. And there's not too many options on the PC version either.
I'm just gonna wait until
#stutter struggle.
Yeah.
Oh boy, is that the same thing? Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll
Cool. Then
get to that though.
I'll get to that some other time. Don't worry about it. But for right now, Final Fantasy VII news. What's going on?
So Tetsuya Nomura was doing a live stream for the what do you call it? Battle Royale game, Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier, which is their take on a Battle Royale title.
I forgot about that. I forgot that's a thing. Yeah.
And during the live stream, he said next month, June, they would have more information not only on Final Fantasy as a whole, but on 7 Remake Part 2 in particular. The producer of 7 Remake, Yoshinori Kitase, also said back in January, like, hey, we're going to have more FF7 news. And pretty much since the first part came out, people were saying that at the earliest, we would probably get new information around this time frame. The game's been in development for a little over 2 years now. I believe the first part was originally in development from CyberConnect for maybe about a year or maybe a little bit longer before Square took it away and started working on it in-house. So we're coming up on that time where we're hopefully going to see something, whether it's like a trailer or maybe like a subtitle. But the interesting thing is Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade recently got retrademarked. And some people are saying, well, is it coming to Xbox? Probably not. I think Sony backed up the Brinks truck to Square to keep that franchise console exclusive for the time being. So I do not see it coming to Xbox. However, bringing up the PC version, I think the trademark being re-upped means it's probably going to come to Steam because it was, an Epic Games release. A lot of people were mad about that. So I think at some point in time this year, we will see a Steam release version of the game. So then, Jeremy, if you want to play it on PC, you can just download the Steam version instead of having to go through Epic.
I'm pretty sure I'm just going to watch some streamers play it, bro. I feel like I could do that. I need to get the Overwatch beta codes anyway. So
yeah, but
hopefully that's the case. When you say on Xbox, I agree. As much as I am a much more bigger Xbox fan, probably. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably almost not quite as much as some people can be about Sony. But no, but no, I know as while Xbox is my primary gaming platform, even I see the writing on the wall, Matt. Like, am I frustrated that 13, 14, not 14, sorry, 15, those ones came out and then were abruptly just being left behind? Yeah, a little bit, but at the same time, these are like anthology series. Mm-hmm. And Final Fantasy VII, I don't care where it's been re-released. Let's be honest. Even as somebody who is very skeptical, still remains skeptical of the game's prowess. That was a PlayStation game. That very much was a Sony property. So when the remake was coming to PC, I thought, well, that was gracious of them. I didn't think that was even happening. But yeah, I definitely think that's probably the most logical conclusion is that a Steam release is going to come because aren't we hitting about that year mark? It's usually about a year
Well,
exclusivity on the.
December is when the Epic Games version released.
Gotcha. I haven't really kept up, so that's my bad.
Yeah, but
well, it's 6 months, so 6 months to a year.
So
that
even
does sound pretty reasonable. Yeah.
Even if it is a year-long thing, they can still announce, hey, coming towards the end of the year, Steam version.
Yeah. That'll be good for people who don't want to deal with Epic.
It's definitely not coming to Switch. That game could not run on a Switch, especially the last part of it. There's so much that's going on in that last section of the game that I think, unless it's a cloud version of the game, I do not think a Switch would run it. I really don't.
By the way, when we hit the PlayStation Plus part with the cloud stuff, man, I'm about to go on a tirade.
Oh God.
I'm just gonna warn you now. Anyway, but yeah, no, it's yeah. It sounds like really good stuff for people who are looking forward to more Final Fantasy VII, both on PC and then more info on part 2. Like even I'm waiting on part 2.
Yeah. And then there was some other trademarks filed, including Labyrinth Striker. It's no Final Fantasy attached to it, just Labyrinth Striker, I believe. And then Final Bar Line. It's nobody's sure if that's related to Final Fantasy VII or if it's just Final Fantasy in general, because like I said, next month is the 35th anniversary of the entire franchise. And then there's other games that they still haven't talked about, like Ever Crisis. I don't know if you guys remember Ever Crisis being announced.
I think I heard the name.
Yeah, it's basically a much more faithful recreation of not just Final Fantasy VII, but the entire compilation of 7. So Final Fantasy VII, Before Crisis, Crisis Core, Advent Children, and Dirge of Cerberus, all being remade for mobile platforms, and the classic like chibi style characters, fixed camera angle, turn-based battle system. So that's supposed to come out this year, but we haven't seen anything on it since last year when they announced Intergrade. So I would expect to see some stuff for Ever Crisis. And the thing about Ever Crisis 2 is that I think it was a couple of months before it was announced that game got trademarked. So whatever Labyrinth Striker is and Final Bar Line are, I'm sure we will see that very soon next month. Final Bar Line, I have no idea what that is, but I looked up the definition on Google, and apparently it's a musical term signifying the end of a composition or of a movement of a composition. So some people are thinking, is it a rhythm game? But Square, Tetsuya Nomura, they like crazy ass titles and subtitles for their games. So Final Bar Line, for all we know, is like the final part of this Final Fantasy VII compilation, for all we know.
Didn't we just have we had Melody of Memory just come out, Kingdom Hearts, not too long ago, right?
There's there's Melody of Memories, there's Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm. So it could be a rhythm game for all we know. But I don't know. What's Final Bar Line? Is it like a Tifa spinoff? Is it like a bar building simulator? Am I gonna have to run the bar? I don't know. And then as for Labyrinth Striker, some people speculate maybe it's going to be like a Warriors type game, like Dynasty Warriors or Hyrule Warriors. Although I don't know if I'd want that. You've got the basis for it with Dissidia. You can just plop those characters into an open world to fight enemies and whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening next month in regards to Final Fantasy. So I'm hoping that we get something for part 2. I will take anything at this point. Give me a subtitle. Give me a fancy CG movie. I will take anything. So if you guys have anything to add to any of that huge pile of news I just dumped on you guys, feel free to do so.
Well, I can go ahead. I'm kosher. Like I said my piece earlier. I'm not the best opinion for this.
7 Remake was a damn fun game, and you should play it by any means necessary.
Yep. Fantastic game.
Okay, since we're going.
If you think anything different, Jeremy, then you're a big dummy. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
perfect.
Dude, yeah, it was absolutely perfect. My favorite part was
only stupid people don't like it.
We had to get to the top of the building. It was imperative that we got to the top of the building. But hey, why don't you sit down? Dude, check out this virtual training machine. Do you see this thing? Man, you could spend hours here, couldn't you? I know you got someplace to be. I get that you have a pace that you had in mind when you were playing it, but that pace isn't my pace. Final Fantasy VII, it's not that when you play it and you don't like it, it's not that the game's bad. There's a problem with you. You're the issue in this relationship. Yeah. Anyway, believe it or not, as much as I may say, that was my only gripe was the pacing. Aside from that, though, I have to wholeheartedly agree. As one of the biggest naysayers out there that thought 7 was super overhyped, it was a really good time. It was a really good time, and the way that they're making it fresh for people who already played was really nice. I liked it.
Yeah,
in spite of it all,
and that's why I'm not worried, because I think in first part anyway, they really nailed the characters. They nailed the writing. It wasn't like typical stiff Square Enix dialogue where, like, Dirge of Cerberus had this a lot, where someone would say something like, "Oh, they're from deep underground," and then the other character would go, "Deep underground?" Like, you know how that shit happens a lot in anime, where someone just repeats what was just said for no reason.
Well, yeah, they cut like half of Cloud's dialogue when they got rid of it.
Yeah, so none of that was in the remix, so I'm not really worried at all. I think it's going to be great, and I just hope we get some new news.
As long as they get their door textures under control, man. I still don't understand that door.
It's fixed and integrated.
That was fixed on PS5. Yeah.
Oh, that's where the power of that new solid state came in to fix that door.
The power of the PS5 making all of the doors. And then there's Final Fantasy 16, which seems to be on track for release probably this year. The producer even said, like, the game is near completion. They weren't going to give us any news until it was almost finished, so we'll probably get news on that. I'm a little less excited for 16 just because it seems more like a straight up action game than it does like typical RPG. And I think from what I read, it's going to be a 2-character game, so you're not going to have a full party of characters, unfortunately. But it's interesting because it looks full on action, but they also said that this would be a game where if you are a lapsed Final Fantasy fan, this would be the game that would bring you back. So I'm actually really curious to hear what you guys have to think about that statement. Kimmy, I'll start with you because I know that you're really big on Devil May Cry. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the battle directors on Devil May Cry 5 is working on Final Fantasy 16. So I'm curious as to what your take is on how the combat is going to evolve from what we saw in like 7 Remake to something that's just straight up action now.
You wouldn't consider 7 Remake to be an action game?
It's action, but it still has those RPG elements to it where I can switch between characters. I can pause and use the tactical menu if I want. I can select my magic, do my summons, all that. When I think straight up action, I think like Devil May Cry, you know?
Yeah, I mean, having literally just finished Stranger of Paradise,
oh yeah, we should talk about that too.
I'm definitely a fan of if the action is done well, like it is in that, because in that game you're not switching characters, but when you switch jobs, I mean, you are fighting melee, or you can switch to like a white mage and fight from a distance, all while, you know, not going to the menus or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm definitely willing to give it a try. Yeah, I like the combat in 7 and 15, so I think it'll be good. I hope it's good.
Yeah. I mean, they seem to be bringing in all the right people to make sure that it feels like a good playing game. But any thoughts on that, Jeremy?
I'll admit I haven't really kept up. I'm actually literally witnessing, this is the story trailer, I guess. I'm actually taking a look at it now. However, from what I've heard here, okay, bold statement saying people who are lapsed Final Fantasy fans will like it, because I literally exist to prove that statement true or false. Because that's the fun part. I was a pretty decent fan of like Tactics 1 and 2, stuff like that. Well, not really 1 and 2. It's complicated in the 1, 2, 3 range. It's almost as complicated as Mario's, where the Mario 2 we got isn't the real Mario 2. But yeah, no, I was a big fan of those back when. But the part of the reason why I felt with those is just because my love of turn-based action kind of waned as time went on. So when they say if you were a fan before, this will bring you back, I'm digging the pull back to fantasy settings. So that's, you know, I'm liking that. Yeah. 7 was nice. I actually weirdly like 15, even for its flaws.
Yeah,
which
15
weirdly enough,
like
there are many.
Yeah, it's like a mixture of like fantasy and modern times.
Yeah, but I dug 15 a little bit. So seeing this pullback straight to the fantasy stuff is pretty nice, because I know I didn't get to play 13. I never really got into 13 too much myself, which is why I can't be too grumpy when they left. When I mentioned that, is like, well, I never really played 13 anyway, so what am I missing? But from what I could tell, it looks like it's hitting all the right the right bits. And when you said that the main combat designer from Devil May Cry 5 was helping on this title, taking up a similar role, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like all the makings for something that might get me back. Again, the one caveat being is that well, it's PS5. I'm kind of left in the dust on that one a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure eventually it'll hit PC.
Yeah, someday. But for the moment, I mean, it looks like it could be a pretty solid title from what I could see. Graphically impressive stuff. I get a chuckle out of the addendum at the beginning when I saw it. This is from 2020 though, but it was hilarious that they said on a PC emulating the PS5 experience. I'm just kind of like, nah, nice. Well, the PC version's confirmed then. But no, I can't really say much, so maybe I'll just stick it with that. I can't say too much as I'm not as up to date on it as I'd want. It's a bold statement, but so far it's hitting all the marks. The fantasy setting, the increased, focus on action. Like I'll agree, like Final Fantasy VII felt like an action game, but as somebody who walked in and just played on hard instantly with no knowledge, that has got to be the most tense. I spent so much time in the slowed down mode, dishing out commands and swapping characters by the time I reached the end. I don't even think it wouldn't qualify as like a pure action game for me by the end. It also sounds like I may have played wrong. I missed a lot of things. But yeah, no, it looks like it's going to be great, graphically impressive as always. But I don't know. I'll keep a better eye on it. I definitely do need to dig up all the stuff about this. I apologize. You went in with this and then said Final Fantasy 16. I'm like, oh, the one. Yeah. I know nothing about this one. Dang.
And to be fair, there's not a ton of information out there on 16. Yeah. They're very under wraps with a lot of it. So I'm assuming next month. Yeah, next month we'll get way more on that. So
probably, yeah.
To move on to the next topic, we're going to talk about PlayStation Plus. But before that, I believe it's DualShockers.com was reporting that Sony might be launching a PlayStation Network launcher for PC. So I know they've been making an effort to try and get their stuff on PC more lately, but if they decide to do a launcher, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know, considering everybody spends their time bemoaning the look, the way I see it is if the guys who made Windows couldn't do a successful launcher, I think I'd just leave it in the hands of the people who know what they're doing. Epic's belligerent enough to try and make it work anyway. EA's giving up and Steam reigns supreme. It's really hard to tell people, hey, have another launcher, have another library.
Yeah.
And so when people are like, I want to see more Sony titles, I ain't gonna lie. That doesn't sound surprising to me at all. That's what they're trying to do. Sony's been really good about saying, I'd like you to be in my ecosystem. When I come to PC, it'll be on my terms.
Yeah, and to be fair, if they're on their own launcher, then they don't have to pay any, cut to Steam or Epic, right?
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah, that does cut out the middleman. But like I said, if EA, one of the biggest publishers in the world, and Microsoft themselves couldn't swing it, I mean, I hold out high hopes. I mean, it'll be a great place if it ends up being like the guaranteed spot for PlayStation exclusives on PC. I mean, especially for someone like me who is a little late to the call it the console trifecta, having them all at the same time. Like I got PS4 2019, so that shows you how quick I am on the ball.
Yeah,
but
I was going to say that just Kimmy, you got anything to add to this? The news that they might be making a launcher.
I feel like you'd have the biggest opinion on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be a good thing. More games for more people on PC. I don't see why it will be a bad thing.
And as for PlayStation Plus, I've been covering pretty much all the news that's been coming out for the past couple months. I did send you guys the graphic for all the different tiers. So the basic tier, which is the one everyone's on right now, is the essential tier. It's going to act just like regular PlayStation Plus. You get your monthly downloadable games. You might get some discounts here and there. The cloud storage for saving, online multiplayer, and then the PlayStation Plus collection. And that's going to be $9.99 a month, which is cheaper than Game Pass.
And the PlayStation Plus collection, to note, is on the PS5 only.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Which, again, not me. I want to emphasize that when we talk about these things, I don't mean to be the constant Sony berater, but I literally embody it sounds horrible. The average like Xbox multiple console enjoyer with a preference. I'm weird. I have an Xbox. I picked up the Xbox and I got the PlayStation 4 late. So when you hear these things, if you're all like, but what about PS4? Don't worry, I'll be asking that question.
Second tier is the extra tier, which based on everything that's come out, that seems to be the tier to go with. That one's $14.99 a month, same as Game Pass. But if you pay the year-long subscription, I believe that's $100, so that's cheaper than Game Pass. But you get everything from Essential in that one, plus the catalog of up to 400 games for PS4 and PS5. The PlayStation Studios back catalog will be on there as well. And then Premium, which is the one me and Ryan thankfully got for half the price. That's going to be
before they close that loophole.
Yeah, that's $17.99 a month, which is more expensive than Game Pass. $120 a year, still cheaper than Game Pass somehow. I'm surprised they didn't find a way to jack up the price on that. But it's basically everything that you get with extra, but then you get the cloud streaming, you get that classic catalog of very small games right now. And you get the PS3 streaming as well for your consoles and I think PC as well. And then the timed game trials. But another thing too that came out was that Sony Bend announced that Siphon Filter, the classic version on this service, is going to have trophy support. So I'm assuming that means all first party titles will probably get trophy support. Third party, that's probably up in the air as of right now, but that will be coming as well. So if you guys have any questions on this service, fire them off at me now, because I'm like a Rolodex for this shit now.
I'm going to just get my opinion out the way real quick. As I look at the list of games, as someone who generally buys games usually right when they come out, there is nothing on the list that I either don't own, haven't played, or is something that hasn't been offered before. The old PlayStation games is probably the biggest thing. I probably wouldn't play them if they didn't have trophy support. If they have trophies, that'll be a reason for me to like play Siphon Filter for sure.
Yeah, it's incentive.
Yeah.
And I don't think the PS3 streaming is acceptable.
If you want to get in on that, because I'm about to go all in, because I know exactly where you're at. Your rough points for this are my rough points, I'm pretty sure.
What I'll say about that before you go, Jeremy, is that I have good internet, so I'm very lucky in that my experience with the PlayStation Now streaming has been fine on PlayStation 3 games. PS2 games stream just fine. PS4 games is where I had my problems. That's where the resolution dropped, the lag spikes hit, or the latency, as somebody tried to correct me, for the controller. So
that would be latency.
That's too much of a coin toss. If you got good internet, you're probably going to have a decent experience, but the infrastructure in America with internet is not great. So to have those games locked behind streaming when Sony could put up the money if they wanted to do R&D on an emulator and work this out so you can play locally, that's all the more reason to just get the extra tier. But go ahead and fire off what you were going to say.
No. When it comes to the pricing, I'm actually very impressed. I'm very impressed. This is very competitive pricing. Like when I saw this, the monthly being $14.99 for what essentially is Game Pass.
But with better
premium
games.
Chill.
Games that Microsoft could never do.
However, I swear to God, dude, you're gonna change your name to like Sony PlayStation eventually.
You guys want some peaches?
That are cloud. But no. It's hyper competitive, and I think offering what is it offering? Like for example, let's look at their extra tier. Their extra tier is probably the most direct competitor, not one-upping, not going under, but direct competitor to Game Pass. And then the yearly subscription fee being overall still less, still netting you that buy more and win type thing. That's where like we got 10 minutes, by the way. That's where the primary competitive or competition's coming in, is because Game Pass right now is 1-to-1. You buy 12 months, you're paying for $15.90 or $15 for each month. Which is something they tried to pull with Game Pass or Xbox Live Gold too for a split second, which makes sense when you're the only player in the game, which is why I'm kind of glad that, you know, fans crawled out and they were like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that was kind of wrong of us. Probably not. So that's why I'm kind of glad to see this, believe it or not, even as an Xbox player, seeing all this competition come out of PlayStation. I mean, the last thing you want is literally the chief of console exclusives to come out and say, what if we have something similar with all of our blockbuster games? You know, what do you do then? The caveat being is that this definitely does leave PlayStation 4 in the dirt a little bit, as a lot of this is like for PS5 and stuff like that. For example, the PlayStation Plus collection is PS5 only. That's fine. You know, late adopter. That's the late adopter fee. You know, you get in here late, you get left behind early. But when it comes to the fancier version, let's say the premium one, I did like what I'm seeing from the premium one, and it only being $2 more, $3 more, I think in general. I think it's $3 more, yeah.
For monthly, yeah.
Still has that awesome buy in bulk, get it cheaper one. There was a neat little loophole that you guys got in on. But that's closed now. Which is funny because I do get a chuckle out of that. They closed that one, but Xbox had a similar loophole, and they're just like, yeah, this is how you do it. And so
yeah, it was like you could get like years for like $1. I think is what me and Ryan, I think all of us did for the longest time.
Yeah. It was really, really cheap. It was actually, it doesn't surprise me that Sony closed it up. Because that was literally like hemorrhaging cash. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to that one though, the 340 additional games, including PS3 games via cloud streaming, I have a big rough point. What Ryan already said about about if you're a PlayStation fan, if you've already been playing PlayStation, I really don't see the appeal of this. This very much feels like a way to tell Xbox players, hey, why don't you come check this? It's super easy. $15, literally every game that we've ever made that's been awesome, which by the way is all of them, if you didn't know, is here. Come on, come check this out. We got a Game Pass too, is what this says. However, for people who've already had it, aside from the older catalog, which I agree should have been more of an emulation, aside from the older catalog, not a whole lot of appeal here. But when it comes to the whole cloud streaming thing, counter argument to what you said, Corduroy, I also have fantastic internet, gig down, so not bad. Still run into issues. It doesn't matter who's cloud streaming I run into. I think the only one that was really good was Stadia, but I guess when that's the only shtick you've got, you got to kind of have to do it good. But dealing in both Microsoft's and the few times I've dabbled with PlayStations, which isn't a lot, I'll admit, I haven't dabbled in PlayStations nearly as often. Mostly because there isn't a whole lot of robustness for it unless you're playing titles on your PlayStation 4. Yeah. Whereas like for Microsoft, I've done it all over the place. And I've dealt with Switch's cloud thing. I'm not sure I'm on board. Maybe it's because we're in the US. Maybe it's because of how wonky our internet is set up. Maybe in Japan, this is completely feasible because
it probably is.
You know, by the way their infrastructure is, you know, they don't have to worry about, hey, I want to borrow your line. Yeah, no, that's not happening. Lay your own. Oh, I'd like to lay my own. Too bad, I own the land. Sucks. Maybe this is feasible for them, but I have yet to see and really appreciate the appeal of cloud streaming. It doesn't matter if I'm doing it from my console, hardwired straight to my network. It doesn't matter if I'm doing it on my phone via 5G. It doesn't matter if I'm doing it on my phone wireless to my network. It doesn't matter if I'm doing it on my PC. There's always a very severe latency, and it will never be the ideal way for me to play. Every time I've tried to do this, it hasn't been ideal. So when they hit me with this preview one and they say we have these additional games, including PS3 games available via cloud streaming, it's like, I'm sorry, what is stopping you from putting together a PS3 emulator? Like, what is really getting in the way of that? And if you're saying it's the design of the PlayStation, my brother and whatever religious figure you believe in, you made the console.
Yeah. You
can't tell me you don't know how. It doesn't work like this. No, when it comes to some of these ones, I do appreciate it, but it definitely feels the same. Like, it gives me that same bad taste in my mouth that the classics on Switch is giving me. Like, on Switch, they're closing out all different ways to play it and funneling you into their subscription service. And I'm like, this is less than ideal for maintaining these old games. These games that your legacy is literally built on can be streamed at 480p to me. That's cool, I guess. In the case of Switch, at least it's a little better. You're playing them locally there on your console, so that's cool. Not nearly as lame, because Switch knows they can, or Nintendo knows they can port theirs. They just won't. Whereas Sony, I genuinely believe there is a stopgap, but I still think the effort should be put in. A group should be set aside and hammering out how to get these games running natively on the hardware. I mean, that's one of the things that I've been relatively impressed with Microsoft to an extent. There isn't much for them to catalog. There isn't a whole lot of Xbox games to really catalog. But when it comes, if you do have them back there, they've either straight up re-released them in crazy good packages. Like, I still think the Master Chief Collection is one of my favorite collections out there, aside from that first 3 years that it was out. But now it's like $10, all 6, as some people would argue, good Halo games available to you. Or it's on backwards compatibility. So, and those play natively. I pop the disc in the drive and I begin. You know, it's cloud just doesn't feel like the place, even when Microsoft was.
It's way too early to do cloud streaming. We just do not have the technology for it right now.
Well, I just think, and that's why I think it's a pretty good thing that Microsoft, the way they did it, it's like, here's the cloud streaming, and people are like, oh, I'm gonna have to pay extra for that. They're like, nah, man, it's part of you know what? It's just part of Game Pass. You could just do that. And they recently made it so that even free-to-play titles, actually the first one I think is Fortnite, weirdly enough. What is it? Fortnite requires no subscription whatsoever. You go to the thing, set it up, begin playing. I still don't think it's the ideal way to play it, but I think I like the way that Microsoft's playing a little coy with it. Like, let's see. I really don't feel like this is worth any extra money at the moment.
Yeah. And the one positive I will add is that the fact that they put games on the service that are less than 2 years old is promising. I think a lot of people expected like Demon Souls or both Spider-Man games to not be on this list, but they're there. So, you know, maybe, who knows, next year, like Horizon Forbidden West might pop up on that service. You never know.
However, you did have your one caveat when you tested it. I'm not nearly as familiar with this, but you said the PlayStation 3 ones were running fine, but the PS4, the newer gen ones, issues. Yeah,
those are where I had problems.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious on hopefully the PS5 ones skip it. Maybe the PS4 is just a problematic generation. I'm not sure. Maybe it just comes down to the way the infrastructure is set up, but fingers crossed. Because I want cloud to succeed. It's a great way for people who don't have the raw bandwidth to download these multi-gigabyte games, which is a whole nother conversation on its own, to be able to access these games in some capacity, especially if they only have a Nintendo Switch, which isn't capable of playing. That's cloud streaming in general. Sony's unconnected to that. But I like the idea of cloud streaming as a way for people to check out these games without having to pay the more and more exorbitant price tag to get in, and be 500, 300, so on and so forth. And then make the jump in. But I still always think of cloud streaming as to like the stopgap. You check out cloud streaming to decide on purchasing a console. It's never the ideal way to play, in my opinion. I still not a fan. So yeah, well, I hope it's good, but $3 extra for cloud streaming. Come on, man, get that PS3 emulator going. You guys got the money. Let's do it. Let's do it already.
They can do it. They just don't want to spend the money. But those are pretty much those are pretty much all our topics. I don't know if you want to add anything in this last minute or so, Kimmy, to what we talked about.
No, just all the games that are PS3 streaming. You don't like have to wait for those. Those have all been available for a while now, and you can stream those on PS4 at this very moment if you want to.
Yep.
None of these are new.
Kimmy, you said you wanted to add something in regards to xCloud.
Yeah, since I don't I really only have time on the weekends to play, but sometimes when I'm at work, I'll be a lazy fuck and I'll pull out my phone. And for the first time, I was actually browsing the xCloud app, and a lot of the games on there, like, not only do they play well, but a lot of them are like optimized for touchscreen. So they'll use around the user interface to try to make it easier for you to play. And I was actually able to play a couple hours of Dragon Quest 11 that way, and it worked really fucking well with touch. Like, it's not like a very involved game. It's it's a turn-based game, but yeah, it was a really good experience, as a matter of fact.
It might not be the what's the word I'm looking for here?
Ideal
way to play, but it works.
I gotta admit, I did forget about that. Completely spaced it. That because I've always had a controller. I've got Bluetooth controller, so I just connected my controller to my phone, and that's probably where half of my skepticism comes from, because I'm comparing playing on my Xbox to playing on my phone, which obviously it's not going to be great. But I totally spaced the fact that they actually do have like a whole segment. I haven't been actively Game Pass subscribed for a hot minute, so I haven't seen the mobile app in a hot minute. But I'd forgotten that as I was leaving, one of the first ones they put on was like Minecraft Dungeons, which, believe it or not, is a charming little game. If you haven't got a chance, it's a neat little Diablo clone. I wouldn't say it's super involved, but it's a pretty decent game. Sorry, weird shill for that out of left field. But yeah, I had totally forgotten that on mobile devices they had spent a long time, and I think going through them. I don't know if it was terribly different for you, but I think they actually do go through them like by hand to see like what's necessary and what's not necessary. Like you get exactly what you need to get through it. And then on top of that, it's not just having a virtual keyboard or a virtual screen thing. Like some of them have the ability, like in dungeons, especially, you were able to get around the menus via touching. You didn't have to use the virtual key or the virtual controller to get around. I totally spaced that. That actually is like a pretty big thing. I wonder if Sony will have an answer to that. But it seems they're stressing more so PC and like PS4 streaming PS5 titles type thing.
Yeah.
So
I think the closest Sony ever came to that was Remote Play on the Vita, where they kind of had like a user interface specifically for the games, but it was across all the games. It wasn't like this is specifically for Kingdom Hearts or this game. So I think that's the closest Sony's ever done with anything like that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure to mention I actually have had a decent cloud experience.
I've heard people say that xCloud runs really well. Back when I had Game Pass last year, I opened up xCloud on my iPad with the intention of trying it out, and I never got around to it. So now that I have Game Pass again, I'll probably boot it up on my iPad to try it out and see if I can connect my controller via Bluetooth and see how that experience is. Maybe I'll play Friday the 13th.
I know I feel like that'll give you a biased opinion because then you'll be playing. Was that Friday the 13th getting spicy or the streaming getting spicy?
Oh my God, with that game. I never know if it's my Xbox now or if it's the game because I have the OG VCR Xbox One. That thing is horrible, man. That thing is not holding up.
Bro, I'm dead serious. My mother has a version of that. And I told her right now, I said, if you ever get another Xbox, man, you let me get that Magnavox VCR, man. I need that. That is a staple. I want to tell people if anybody ever complains where consoles are now, I don't like the sound it makes. Let me show you this.
Oh yeah.
Actually, it was funny. It was pretty quiet unless you're playing like Modern Warfare. That turned even the Xbox One X into a small heater. But yeah, no. I think that's the problem. That's probably the problem I have. So I'll note some bias in my opinion on cloud. I'll note some bias in my opinion of the cloud stuff. I've been always trying it from the perspective of somebody that has the ability to play these titles a better way. Maybe I need to give it another shot because recently I found myself picking up the Switch ports of Crysis just for the sake of seeing impossible things that shouldn't happen before my very eyes.
Did your Switch not blow up?
No, it didn't. Actually, that's a whole nother topic, but they actually, again, less than ideal. But I mean, if you only have the Nintendo Switch ones, you're essentially getting the Xbox 3 better than the Xbox 360 versions on the Nintendo Switch in a handheld form. So like, I'm actually pleasantly impressed by those. But nonetheless, what I'm saying is I'm finding myself looking back at places where I was a grumpy, like, oh, why would you ever want to play it like this? And going back and going, well, now I can see the applications. Like I said it in my rundown that this might be great for people who want to try them out to maybe get into it. But maybe I need to take another look at it with a brighter set of eyes. Because Ryan mentioned the what is it? The accessibility options to be able to get around the screen via touch without having to worry about virtual controllers or always having a controller plugged in. They have an optimized for touch section now that I remember it. And basically just came in and was like, let me go ahead and pop that cynical balloon of yours real quick, Jeremy. Let me just go ahead and get rid of that. And now my brain's like, oh, great. I've just been a dick. But yeah, no, maybe I need to give it a better appreciation. So I still don't think it's worth a premium. And I still stand by the fact that Sony should just go ahead and make that PS3 emulator in some capacity. I mean, we'll beat you to it. We're going to get it before you. You'll come to the rest of us to find out how to do it.
I guarantee you if Sony was like, hey, we're actually going to put money into local emulation, that there would get people interested in that premium tier.
Homie, that would get me interested. And I don't even have the ability to do it. Like I'd get it just to be like it sounds horrible, but it's gotten to the point we've gotten so stingy with our money. What is it, Ryan? We've had talks about this before where it's like, I want we're getting to a point where giving money where it needs to be given, like vote with your wallet thing. Like all of us, as we've gotten to a certain age, have reached a point where it's like, yeah, we have to. I can't just, oh, I'm an Xbox fan, I'm going to get a Game Pass. What else am I going to do? Like I have to justify, I don't have Game Pass, and I'm like one of the biggest fans of Xbox out there. I don't even have Game Pass. What is it? So it has to go where it is. I'll admit right now that if Sony came out and said, you know what, you guys are right, we do need to do the PlayStation 3 emulation, I'd give it in a heartbeat. Because that right now the problem is that like Microsoft's making an attempt, Nintendo's monetizing it, and and PlayStation isn't giving us a good enough reason to not try, or to try. But there's such a legacy of games that these newer consoles, and we're all kind of losing. Like we're all kind of trying to talk about it during the 360 and the early Xbox One, PS4 era, but now that the new consoles have come out, Nintendo's shutting down anything that isn't the Switch. Sony attempted to shut down anything that isn't PlayStation 4 and up. It's like we're starting to realize, and everything's moving to a live service thing. We're starting to realize, it's like, look, go ahead, man.
Just a couple of weeks ago, you couldn't even play the games you owned when Xbox was down for the weekend.
Yeah.
Yep. That was a huge issue, especially if you do, like everybody does. Who doesn't? I mean, come on. But if you do the game sharing where your library is mine, my library is yours. You know how it is. I do that with a friend of mine, and when that went down, not a single title you could play. And as that becomes the norm, I guess that's the thing. I do want to give money. I do want to give money and credit where it's due. Nintendo, you can't just prepackage and resell me the games I grew up playing in a way that allows you to go, I don't want you to have these anymore. You know what I mean? Xbox, I ain't gonna lie, that's probably like one of the worst outages they've had in a long time, and still doesn't shake a stick to that Sony outage. Do you guys remember that? Was it PS3 era? When it was down for like something in the ballpark of like 2.5 weeks.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough time. I'll admit this is the worst one. And while I don't say, like, if we're looking at a vacuum, that's not that bad for my Xbox, but it brings light to the larger issue. The larger issue being your library isn't yours.
You have the license to your library, but you don't own the library.
Yeah, which is why I've actually taken a much more inkling to picking up my games on disc, because even then the disc still counts as your proof of license to an extent. But like, how much longer is that going to be? I mean, now people are talking about, it's hilarious how ahead of the curve in the worst way possible Microsoft was back when they talked about how, you could put the disc in, just install it, never put the disc back in. That's your license, done. I actually watched when people were talking about the outage on Xbox. People straight up said, or no, they weren't talking about the outage on Xbox. They're talking about a patent filed by Xbox, which isn't too bad for digital games, where if you had two consoles and you wanted to play that on both consoles, you could put it into one and it would verify over your network that you owned the disc and allow both consoles to play. It's just a patent, could lead nowhere. But it did start a conversation where I actually saw people saying, yeah, how about if I put the game in the console, I can just install it once and never have to put the disc in again. I'm like, I can't believe we're now in the situation where people are asking for the original Xbox plan again from Xbox One. We've reached a point where people actually want that. And that's kind of, I'm actually looking at a webpage that says the word I'm looking for. That's kind of the danger zone. I don't want to reach that point where that's okay. It shouldn't be okay that you never own anything you've got. There should be a modicum of ownership. I mean, to an extent, when I buy a book, the author can't come in and take that shit from me. He can't come in and be like, I don't want you to have this version. I have a revised version. You get that one now. You know what I mean? Sure, resell them, repackage them, whatever. I want to still be able to have the original, and that's the thing. That's a whole thing into itself right there. So yeah, I went on a tangent there for a second. I apologize. But basically, Sony, step up your game. Nintendo, just stop it for 2 seconds. Just stop. Okay. Xbox, homie, figure out what 343 is doing. What are they doing? They're like an unchecked child now. You need to sort this out. Okay. But good on you for everything else. I'm hoping to see all those cookies in the oven come out eventually. Some fucking day. Oh, pardon my French. Someday. Go ahead and cut that out.
That's fine. We swear.
Oh, good. I didn't know if you were like waiting. You're like, well, This video is demonetized. There we go. Right.
I can't even monetize anyway, man. It don't matter.
Look, I don't know how well you're doing these days. I don't look at my little funny numbers anymore. Yeah, they're just depressing.
The one little thing I wanted to add to the end of the conversation is that although we're not, where we should be with our internet to where we can do cloud streaming, it was really nice to browse a library of games, find one I wanted to play, wait like 30 seconds to a minute for it to boot up, and then boom, I'm just playing. I don't have to download anything. I don't have to install anything from a disk. I can back out of that game, pick another game, play that one almost immediately. So when we reach a point in time where our internet is better, that's going to be a really cool feature to just jump from game to game from an online library, not have to worry about anything else. So that actually was pretty cool.
I was curious if Ryan was having the same thought of me. I feel like that's cool. I'm glad you like it. Part of me thinks though that's I feel like we're solving the problem the wrong way. You know what I mean? We should just be looking to like bring these games down to make it not such a hassle. You know what I mean? If games came out complete, you wouldn't have to worry about throwing it in and having a 40 gigabyte day one patch. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the thing. It's like digging a river through my house, and then you give me the bridge. It's like, no, you could have just not dug the river. I could just do with no river in my house. Like, but that's a talk for another day. But I get what you mean, though. If this is the direction we're headed, if our internet ever decides to sort itself out, it'll be a nice option. I hope it's not the only way we do things, but it'll be a nice option for those who do want to run, because we do have the digital versions of both of the mainline consoles. So maybe that would be the ideal way to do it, is if you ran out of space, I want to try out the new whatever game's out, boot it up and play. So that'd be nice. That'd be a nice option. I just hope that's not the only option.
Yeah, just someone as like a collector and who buys physical games still. That's a fucking nightmare to me.
What I'm saying is, like, obviously I don't want physical stuff to go away. I'm just saying that being able to jump from like literally like a Netflix of games from one to the other and just like play 5 games in the span of 30 minutes, that was really cool. I'm not saying I want that to be the future. I want my physical stuff. I'm just saying that was a really cool experience for that time being.
I get you. Agreed. I get you. Yeah, it's like I said, I agree, is that it should be a nice option, but I'm not as big into it. I'm starting to get my slow accumulation back. Like, for example, I got my 360, I got my Wii U. I actually need to check on the Wii U, because eventually here I won't be able to make purchases. And I'm curious to grab a few games that are just not. The used game market's another conversation for another day. Jesus, so many conversations for other days. But there's some games that are just not feasible to purchase on disc at the moment, because I don't have $300 to just throw at a game that was $60 not even 7-8 years ago. But yeah, I as somebody who's getting to that point too, who's starting to kind of accrue that himself. Yeah, I'm late, but I'm still in that boat. I hope we find a way through that everybody can get exactly what they want. You know what I mean?
And before we end the podcast, Kimmy, I wanted to ask you, you said you're focusing on building like a Japanese library of Saturn games.
Yeah, my fucking Daytona USA just got here today.
Nice.
And yeah, it's got the full case, complete in box registration card. And I got a Die Hard arcade Japanese coming. I'm so excited, man. I've always wanted one since I was a little kid. It's like a dream come true, honestly.
Yeah, I missed out on the Saturn. I don't recall ever seeing a Saturn in stores, but I remember seeing the games.
I got my experience with the Saturn was my older cousin slapping the ever-loving hell out of my hand for attempting to mess with the Saturn. And that's my only experience with it, was being told no. so since you sound the way you're talking about it, man, now I'm like, now I know where I'm headed next.
And like, how big is the Saturn library? It's not too big, right?
No, it's not big, but the thing is, most of the games are really fucking expensive.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's mostly like SNK and Capcom games and 2D games, and you know how that goes, dude. Weirdly $200, $300 prices.
If I remember correctly, wasn't it? It was mostly, I think some of the people that actually got the chance to adopt it were the people who knew it was coming earlier. And so like a lot of the games you can get on the Saturn are primarily coming from a lot of Japanese publishers who like had the knowledge ahead of time. The foreknowledge to know is coming. Like you won't catch any of the big, because at the time there wasn't a ton of huge Western developers that were knocking big games out of the park in general. So like it's really tough because getting a hold of like the English versions is kind of a pain. And so your only option really is to just lean towards the Japanese versions, which go for exorbitant funds, as he mentioned. It gets to be tough, but still it's a good venture to have, because then you can look back and see it. That's one of the things. My kids in the future, oh, I want to get a hold of the Xbox One library, PS4 library. Oh wait, it doesn't exist. It turns out nobody had it. Oh no, sorry, I had the digital games. I can't sell you that, sorry.
Yeah, but that'd be pretty cool. Like when you actually finally get your library going, and are you gonna like build a cabinet and have like fancy lights too? That's what I would.
Well, I'm gonna get the console first and make sure that motherfucker work, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, that would be pretty cool. Maybe have like all the Sega consoles in one little display or something like that.
You get your whole display built. Disc doesn't even work.
That'll be a cool thing for you to like keep tabs on for us, because like I have my library I've acquired over the years of my own games, but I've never been like, I'm getting this console I never had and I'm gonna build up the library. Although that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've never done it before. I've never really been in a position to do it. So I'm starting off small with 2 games, and we'll see what happens from there.
That'll be me with the PS3 soon. I ain't gonna lie. That's a whole generation I missed entirely of my
if you can
teen
get your
to
hands
adult life
on a working 60 gig version, then you're all set.
for a bit anyway. That 60 gigs run out quick.
Yeah,
but anyway,
well I mean the 60 gigs because that's backwards compatible.
Oh right, yeah, the 60 gig version, yeah, because then for there you can start piecing together some of the older library, for a little bit. I know that is it fully backwards compatible? That literally is a hardware emulator in there, correct?
Yeah,
in the 60 gig one. Yeah,
they literally stuck a PS2 in there.
Okay, gotcha. Which by and large also includes a PlayStation 1 emulator. Or did they cut that out?
Nope, that's in there. There's like 1 or 2 games on PlayStation I own that did not work on PS3. And that was the first Dynasty Warriors. That game just stuck at a black screen, would not play, but pretty much everything else works just fine.
Nice. I'll have to keep an eye out. I know I'll have to pay a pretty sum because those are pretty sought after, especially considering that PlayStation 2s and PS1. Actually, what's funny is I'm curious. I'll have to take a look and see what the availability of PS1 and PS2s are versus the PS3 backwards compatibility.
Yeah, because my PS3 died in 2012. Unfortunately, it hit the yellow light and I could never fix it. So that's a goner. I expect my current Xbox One to die eventually because it has a disk drive problem where if you don't put the disc in the right way, it goes and then you have to eject the disc again. And no joke, 6 or 7 tries before I finally get the disc in properly, and it's a nightmare.
It's incredibly weird. I actually know how to replace, or not weird, but like weird knowledge. I actually know how to replace that disk drive because I had to a while back. A small child had stuck a feather in the disk drive and we had to pry it open. Turns out it's just a standard PC disk drive in there, a DVD drive. It's not even that complicated. Yeah.
I might have to look that up, but I don't use my Xbox enough to really care about it anymore.
But as is the tradition, as a talk for another day.
Yeah. But that's pretty much, that's the podcast. Those were our topics. Do you guys want to leave anything at the end, like any socials or what you're playing or planning to play, anything like that?
I'm still playing Final Fantasy 14. I started Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song yesterday because I love those games. And you can find me at Kemi Gibbler on Twitch and Twitter and everything else.
Same deal, minus the games being played. What is it? You can find me pretty much exactly here, Drunk Lock Holmes. That finds me everywhere. I think that also finds my Facebook, which I should probably fix. But yeah, no, you can find me there, Drunk Luck Holmes. I'm actually going to get back into streaming here. It's actually here in a bit. I'm waiting on these cables and these last few things to sort out. My setup here ran into a huge stopgap that pretty much had my PC down for a week straight. But I should be back up and running here soon. I think when it comes to games I'm playing, I think I'm putting most of them on hold because I'd like to experience them. There are a lot of games that people have requested of me when it came to the streams, and so most of them are on hold. I think right now I spend my time bebopping around in Fortnite for some reason. I'm playing the Save the World campaign on that. It's on weird life support right now, so it's almost weird to watch. But yeah, there's not much else. I mean, ESO, I play a lot of ESO recently. That's been a pretty solid game. Final Fantasy 14 I'd play more, but I forgot my login details, and I think I only have the free tier anyway, so I'd end up in the poor people queue. What a wild game. But yeah, no, otherwise, that's about it.
So that's the podcast. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys in the next one.
All right, take it easy, guys.
See ya.